What springs to mind when you think of SUVs done dirt cheap? Probably the Haval Jolion and MG ZS from China. With prices starting in the low to mid 20s, they've dominated the bottom end of the market for the best part of this decade. Now there are so-called all-new versions of both, promising more than just low pricing. But at 40k drive away and up against established hybrids like the Toyota Corolla Cross, Hyundai Kona, Honda HR-V and Subaru Crosstrek, my name is Byron Mathioudakis for CarsGuide.com.au, and I'm here to see whether it's too long a way to the top for these two to rock and roll. Let's go. But don't worry, it's not like MG and Haval have lost all perspective, because both the Jolion and the ZS are very well equipped at this price point compared to most of their rivals. With just $2,000 separating these two, both include LED headlights, artificial leather upholstery, electric and heated front seats, digital instrumentation, 12.3-inch touchscreens, a 360-degree view camera, adaptive cruise control, a panoramic sunroof, and 18-inch alloys. To find similar features in rivals like Corolla Cross, Crosstrek, Kona, and HR-V hybrids, you're already in the low 40k bracket, or otherwise you'll need to step down to smaller SUVs like the Chery Tiggo 4 Hybrid and Toyota Yaris Cross. Of course, these come on top of all the usual gear, like advanced driver assist safety and airbags all round. But there are differences too, like a ventilated driver's seat, a powered front passenger seat, and a head-up display found only in the Jolion, versus embedded satellite navigation and DAB+ digital radio only in the ZS. But we do need to talk about MG's pricing tactics. Worryingly, there has been heavy discounting on ZS Hybrid for a while now, which is bad news for existing buyers who pay full whack, and this may affect resale values later on. To a lesser extent, others, including Haval, do the same too. Our advice is to haggle hard on the new price. Now, one of these Chinese SUVs is not as new as its fresh styling suggests. Now, keep in mind that the Haval isn't as new as it looks, because this Jolion is actually as old as the regular previous Jolion, which continues in facelifted form. That's because it's actually based on another Haval altogether called the Shitu. However, I don't think that name would fly in Australia. For 2025, it's got slightly wider tracks, but the body in this car is also fairly wide, and so it looks a little bit narrow track, like a VN Commodore in my opinion. Additionally, it's a bit more coupe-like, so it's got a little bit of a sleeker silhouette, so a bit of a sportier look compared to the regular Jolion. But other than that, it's got distinctive Jolion trademarks, such as these vertical LED lighting aspects, the quite pronounced and bold grille, and just the general smoothness of the overall design. It's quite a handsome thing in my opinion, and particularly up front. The ZS, on the other hand, is definitely an all-new design, and it carries MG's new quite pinched nose design language, which, I don't know, I think it looks a little bit too squished for my liking, but you know, it's distinctive MG nowadays. I think this is a better proportion vehicle than either of the Jolions available at the moment. And in fact, surprisingly, even though it looks larger, the ZS is smaller in every dimension except height compared to the Jolion. Also, it's got a shorter wheelbase, and that has implications for the interior space utilization as well. The ZS's rear styling, meanwhile, is extremely generic, much more so, I think, than the Havals, because it could be anything. It could be a Mazda, it could be a Hyundai, it could be a Kia, it could be a Ford. That's no bad thing, because it's quite a neat and handsome design, but it's hardly going to stand out from the crowd. But having said that, it's also quite a boxy and practical shape, and that certainly does pay dividends for interior packaging, so let's check that out. There's plenty to like about the Jolion's interior. It's easy to get in and out of. It offers an excellent driving position, and that's partly due to the fact that the steering wheel adjusts for reach as well as height. Great vision. It's an airy interior, lots of space. Part of that is because it's got a long wheelbase, there's plenty of width. There's just a sense of room in here that is really good. and plenty of storage, whether it's in here, in the door cards, along the console here. There's even a hidden storage area underneath. And the dash, even though it's essentially a half a decade old dash, there's a pleasing simplicity to the look and feel of it. It's really, really good. However, there are some really annoying things about this car, starting with the fact that you can only enter the car keylessly from the driver's side. So you can't open the door at all unless you use the key fob from the passenger side or the curb side in Australia, and that's really annoying. Once inside, you'll notice that everything is within this central touchscreen, and while it does work well and it's quite slick in its appearance and its responses, it's set up for left-hand drive, so the driver has to reach to the top right left-hand corner in order to access the home button, or the climate control screen, or the off screen, or whatever it is. Some of those buttons are duplicated down here, but it's not clear. So the problem with doing that is your eyes are off the road for a moment, and then the driver assist system starts alerting you that the driver is distracted. Very annoying. Also, accessing some of the stuff within the touchscreen requires 2 or 3 steps, meaning that, again, you're distracted, the driver assist alert system goes off, and it's just annoying. There's no digital radio in this car or USB-C ports, and that, I think, betrays the age of the Jolion. And there's no physical volume button for the entertainment system other than the toggle switch on the steering wheel. Again, you need to go into a sub-menu in order to change the volume for everything within the screen. So again, more distraction. Otherwise, really good ventilation, and generally all the amenities are there. So cup holders, you know, all that sort of stuff. Oh, no Apple CarPlay, no wireless Apple CarPlay either. Now, moving on over to the back seat, it's really clear that Haval has put a lot of thought into the rear seat space. There's tons of leg room. Getting in and out is easy. There's one-touch window controls all around, so auto up, auto down. That's really good. Unlike the MG, you get a folding center armrest with cup holders, as well as overhead lighting. And even though they're USB-A ports, you do get a couple of charge ports there, as well as face level ventilation. I also find this cushion to be more comfortable than the front seat. I found the front seat cushion to be a little bit flat, but back here, it's fine. And I think, well, it frankly makes a great taxi because you get lots of space, plenty of storage, and room to relax. I'm sitting inside the latest ZS, and first impressions are really strong. This is a much more modern, chunky, and user-friendly dashboard experience. For the fact that you get easy access buttons and a touchscreen where the sub-menus are clearly identified and fast to use, to the T-bar controller, which is preferable to the round knob thing that the Haval has. And also the flat bottom steering wheel, which feels very German, very BMW. The instrumentation is smart and colourful and also contemporary in its graphics. And the usual amenities in terms of storage and that sort of thing. However, then you realise that this is lacking something, starting with the Haval's excellent head-up display. It's not in this MG, and you really sense the difference jumping it from one to the other, although the actual instrumentation is fine. The steering wheel does not adjust for reach, only height, and that's a little bit annoying. And there's no wireless phone charger or wireless Apple CarPlay / Android Auto. Now, to be fair, the Haval doesn't have that either, the latter that is. But other than that, it's fine. The storage isn't as good. There's less of it. The door bins are a bit smaller. The center console also, although the glove box is fairly big. But overall, it's fine. I do also prefer the seats in this MG. They seem to hug you more, and they're softer and more cosseting. However, when you move out the back, things flip. Back here, the ZS is comfortable and spacious, but it's neither as comfortable nor as spacious as the Jolion. There's noticeably less legroom. The cushion seems a bit flatter back here, and I think it's because I'm sitting on part of the battery or electrification things. There's no center armrest here at all, and thus no cup holder, so there's nowhere for me to put my coffee. And you get only one USB port, no overhead lighting, and that's about it really. It's just a little bit tighter. But it seems better finished, and the quality of materials seem to be higher in the MG compared to the Haval. But the story changes again dramatically further back. Like the MG, you can't fold the rear seat backs remotely from back here in the Jolion. Also, it's got a really high floor because all the electrical gubbins are underneath, which means that the hybrid is fully 1/3 smaller in capacity than the petrol version, which doesn't make it a very good family hauler. While the ZS's boot is almost twice as large as the Jolion's, it's just a pity that neither have a spare wheel, just a tyre mobility kit, which is such a no-no in rural Australia, no matter whether this is a hybrid or not. Now, one of these powertrains is much more powerful than the other one. On paper, both are somewhat similar series parallel hybrids, combining a modest 1.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine with an electric motor to drive the front wheels via a special hybrid transmission. But the ZS makes a lot more torque and weighs a hefty 200 kilograms less than the portly Jolion for a way superior power to weight ratio, meaning that it's usefully quicker off the line. So it's a surprise to learn that the Haval has better brake towing capacity at 1300 kilograms versus just 500 kilograms for the MG. At least the Jolion boasts a sophisticated multi-link independent rear suspension system instead of the ZS's simpler torsion beam setup, so it's bound to be a better drive, right? Okay, we're in the Jolion, and if you are familiar with the old Jolion, you'll instantly recognise that this is a better and improved vehicle than before. It's got a smoother powertrain and it seems a bit quieter. Now, up to a certain point, it's got quite strong performance. So around town and maybe up until about freeway speeds, the electric motor really does help with acceleration. So it can feel quite punchy and quite zippy. It's one of the best things about this car. The other positive is the steering and handling. On smooth roads, it goes exactly where you point it to. It's quite sharp, and it corners well, and quite good road holding too, courtesy of its standard Kumo tyres. The Jolion also has fairly good light steering around town. In the light mode, it's a little bit too lifeless and overly light, and that manifests itself in feeling quite nervous once you get on the freeway, while comfort is the best compromise, because if you put it in sport, it feels too heavy. The suspension, however, does need work. It still feels a little bit loose and clangy, and that means that it rolls a bit too much in corners, and the ride feels a little bit jittery and lurchy, and it's just not that comfortable. You're aware that you're going over bumps constantly. Like a lot of hybrids, the brakes can feel a bit snatchy and artificial, and that's something that the MG also suffers from. And there's a little bit too much road noise coming through, and that's surprising because given this car's advanced suspension design, you'd think that it would be a little bit more refined, but it just isn't. But the biggest problem is the Jolion's advanced driver assist systems, which are just too intrusive. Like you just heard there. The driver attention monitor is always going off, and you're often distracted by the multimeter screen in order to, say, adjust the climate control, and it thinks that you've got your eyes off the road too long, and it goes off, and it's really annoying with a piercing sound, and you can't turn it off. You can turn it off for a journey, but you have to reset it. It resets every time you go back into it. The adaptive cruise control is too easily flummoxed, so if you turn the wheel too much, it switches off, or it slows down, or it thinks you're going to have a collision sometimes. It just needs more Australian road tuning, and until they fix that, it's one of the biggest problems of the car. Otherwise, the Jolion is fine. Like, if you can put up with paranoid driver assist systems, a jolty suspension system, and quite lifeless steering, then it's fine. But in no means is it a driver's SUV. Okay, after the Jolion, there are three things that stand out being behind the wheel of the ZS. Firstly, said wheel does not have reach adjustment. Secondly, this thing's got a lot more performance. And thirdly, it's a lot smoother and more comfortable. So let's start with performance. On paper, it's got a lot more power and torque, and that really manifests itself in a stronger, accelerating and more responsive vehicle overall. No matter where you are or what mode you're in, you put your foot down and the thing just lurches forward. In terms of steering, this is fine. It's quite easy and fluid. It's got a tight turning circle like the Jolion, and it's easy to maneuver. At higher speeds, it feels planted and it goes exactly where you want it to. But the body feels more controlled. It feels tauter, and there's less movement, there's less lurching, there's less pitching, and that makes it a less fatiguing car to be in. And you don't get the annoying driver assist safety systems telling you that you're being too distracted, or you're going to have an imminent collision with something that's not there, or the lane keep assist just kind of tugs the wheel away from you. None of that stuff is an issue with the MG. It is a much better tuned vehicle for Australia than the Jolion, and that's really prevalent when you're driving back to back. Probably the best thing about this car though is how much more comfortable the ride is. It's not jerky, it doesn't feel fidgety, and the suspension just feels tauter and more of one. It's just a more solid feeling piece of engineering, and that's despite the fact that this has a torsion beam rear end as opposed to the Jolion's independent rear multi-link setup. So I wouldn't call this a driver's SUV, but it's much more of a driver's SUV than the Jolion. Conversely, I wouldn't call it the most comfortable medium-sized or small SUV you can buy, but it's way more comfortable than the Jolion. And if you're coming from the old ZS, this feels generations better. The old one was one of the worst in terms of ride comfort, steering feel, and just general handling. It just had a malaise that this car doesn't. They've really, really smartened up the act and made it a much more enjoyable SUV to drive. So yeah, it's difficult to fault dynamically, and it's certainly a more enjoyable overall vehicle to drive and ride in than the Jolion or its predecessor. So much for behind the wheel. What about in front of the Bowser? Surely one of the key reasons why you'd buy a hybrid in the first place. Now, on paper, the Jolion is not as economical as the ZS, as the official combined fuel consumption figures showing on your screen right now suggest. Note though that the MG needs to drink from the more expensive 95 RON premium unleaded Bowser compared to the Haval's taste for the standard 91 RON brew. If these numbers are to be believed, a driver could theoretically average 870 kilometers between refills in the ZS, and, due to its larger fuel tank, nearly 1100 kilometers in the Jolion. During our week with them, we averaged 6.7 litres per 100 kilometers from the MG, which is nothing to write home about, and an especially disappointing 10.2 litres from the Haval, despite them both being hybrids. At least there's somewhat more to smile about when it comes to safety. The ZS has achieved just 4 stars against 5 stars for the Jolion, though that's for the original model launched back in 2021 and tested a year later, so it may not rate so highly under the stricter 2024 requirements that the MG had to meet. And both bring a high level of advanced driver assist safety systems to the table, including automatic braking, lane support tech, and even vehicle exit warnings. You can find the full safety story in my written comparison at carsguide.com.au. Which is safer then? While the MG's 4 stars obviously doesn't look as good as the Haval's 5, the latter's distracting and frankly fatiguing ADAS interruptions is a black mark against it, as we found out earlier. It's a good thing for both then that they have a more consistent story to tell when it comes to ownership. Here's one area where the MG is TNT, like dynamite. Officially, both offer a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty with service intervals at every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, and that's a decent wedge of coverage in anybody's language. But if you choose to service your ZS at an MG dealership, that stretches to a 10-year, 250,000 kilometre warranty. At the time of publishing, only Nissan beats that. Plus, while the Haval also includes 5 years of roadside assistance and cap price servicing, the MG bumps both of those up to 7 years, underlining a more complete ownership proposition, which, in a nutshell, sums up the ZS against the Jolion. Picking a winner isn't difficult because the MG also tops the Haval overall. That's because it offers more performance, more refinement, more sophistication, more cargo space, and less slip from the advanced driver assist systems. In fact, the ZS is one of the most improved SUVs of 2025. But it's not perfect, and I've got to say, I'm a little bit worried that MG continues to discount it so heavily because that can impact resale values. Which is ironic because, unlike the Jolion, the MG is now one that you don't have to buy just on low price alone. Don't forget, you can read the full review at carsguide.com.au, and as always, thanks for watching.